Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. This is I'm just going to start and go right into it. Um
Okay.
I'm today we're talking to Donna Lakes, who is an energy healer. She is one of my first teachers. Um and she owns Asha, which is, can you say
Ascension School of Healing Arts.
Ascension School of Healing Arts.
Yes.
Um and she's got lots of years of experience as an energy healer, psychic, medium, and what else?
Teacher and
Teacher. Yeah,
coach.
yeah, spiritual coach. She's got lots of courses, and I've taken her energy healing course and learned a lot from Donna. And I'm excited to talk to you today because I want to hear more about you and like your story, how you got into um, energy healing and like your background. Like, when did you first realize that you were psychic? Did you see things when you were little? All of that. So if you want to like just start off talking about yourself.
Okay. So yeah, like when I was a little kid, I could see ghosts, I could feel them, I could even hear them, and I was spooked out a lot. And I astral projected when I slept a lot, just weird stuff when I was a kid. And um, looking back, I understand it, but then I did not. I also had very vivid dreams, and I had my how I learned that I was psychic was I had a lot of dreams, and a lot of them came true. So I had prophetic dreams about death and birth. Now, so if I dreamt someone was pregnant, they would be pregnant. If I dreamt someone was gonna die, they would die. But usually it was like people that weren't that close to me. Thank God, usually, especially the death thing. But I think that my neighbor noticed. I used to drive to school with my neighbor, Heather, and I was like, one day I had this dream about her daughter's skating coach because I was a figure skater. And she had a different coach than me. And I had a dream that I saw her at McDonald's with this little girl with like hair like mine and blue eyes. And so the next day I said, "Does Carrie have any kids?" to Heather as we like were getting ready to go to school. And she was like, "No, why?" And I was like, "Because I had a dream I saw her at McDonald's with this little girl with dark hair, curly hair, and blue eyes." And then, sure enough, that's what happened. What she said to me was like, "I just got off the phone with her, and she just told me she's pregnant."
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm like, I don't know, 10 years old probably, you know. And so, sure enough, she had a little girl, and so things like that would happen, and then I would see apparitions, and I would
Like
actually
all the time, all around you, you would see that, or just certain times, maybe a handful
Mo-
of years?
probably mostly at night. I was very afraid at night. I always wanted to sleep with my parents and like would like want to sleep with someone or like sleep with one of my sisters, and like I would go and like get in bed with them because I'd be terrified. And I also had a lot of dreams, like a lot of dreams. And as you know, dreams can be a way of working your intuition, your third eye. So that is when I first noticed it. In my teens, it eased up a little bit, but I also had insomnia, and that is also a sign of like spirits being around you at night and things like that. And then I just always was like really close with Jesus. I was like really into Jesus. I was raised Catholic, and I believed in reincarnation and all these weird things that I don't even know how. So now that I know things, I know I was born with memory, with some memory of things
Mm.
and of what I was supposed to do. So as a teenager, I got that I was supposed to help restore integrity to the earth and help to bring people through a hard time into an easier time. And so back then, I kind of thought it was like, okay, maybe, the bomb's gonna go off and then I have to help the survivors or whatever. Like I didn't know what that exactly looked at like, but I did know that I was all about integrity and like an integrity like alarm. you know,
So how did you know that as a teenager? What gave you like, were you meditating and back then? Like, or how did you, so you were communicating with your spirit guides back then?
so no, it was more like I prayed. I would
Mm.
try to read the Bible, but I never like I was a little dyslexic
Is that your
and
phone? Hold on. Can you put it
I
on
know
silent?
I thought I had it on. There we go. Sorry. I
Okay.
thought I had it on silent, but anyways. So I would you do you like edit this? Is that it?
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, um so anyway, I it was more like I prayed. I would pray and talk to God.
Mm.
And I was kind of like a rebel because I definitely was like an indigo, and indigos are like warriors and they're
Mm-hmm.
come to bring change. And I'm all about the change 555, you know. And I
Right.
help people, I'm constantly changing and I help people transform, basically, is what I do. I help them let go of what doesn't serve them, let go of their trauma, heal themselves, bring them into self-love and into empowerment, into, you know, a new way of being. You
Yeah.
know, you hear these words that I've said for so many years, and you know me for a long time. Now you hear people saying all these same things that I've been saying for years, and it's so weird to hear it coming out of all these other people's mouths and stuff. And I know it didn't come from me, you know, I couldn't have reached all these different people on TikTok and stuff like that. I know that it came from the collective wakening up, so they are awakening, but it's odd times too because there's so much death and rebirth happening at the same time. It's a lot of confusion. And we're in the in between, is what I call it, when we're transforming. And, that is kind of confusing because you don't know how to operate. You can't operate
Yeah.
the way you used to operate. And then you
Yeah.
learn this new way of operating that's like healthier and, more high vibe
Totally.
and everything. But like your old ways just don't work anymore. And you're like in the in between, you're like, oh,
Yeah. We'll get into that, like where we're at is as a collective. Um, but like, so you were actually kind of, would you consider yourself religious or no?
was not religious.
Okay.
I was from a very religious family, and um I went to shrine, so I went to Catholic school my whole entire life. And but I just had this I just was like really into Jesus, but in a very different way than anyone else, you
Okay.
know. And I was open to all things. So like I found religion kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, no, I don't believe that we shouldn't like be able to have birth control. I don't believe this. I believe in reincarnation, blah, blah, blah. And that's the way I was. And so I guess I meditated in my own way, but I didn't really know yet what meditation was as a
Yeah.
teenager. It was more like me praying. And I probably did hear my guides. I just didn't know what the heck that was. I just thought it was God speaking to me. And it is God speaking to you, whether you want to call it guides or whatever, because God's in,
Hmm. All right.
you're
Hopefully
gonna
that works.
you're gonna
Yeah.
have to slice it.
I ran out of my computer. I ran out of space on my computer, but we'll see. I'm like transition to the cloud now. They got me. Um,
Okay.
so okay. So you would consider yourself kind of like a rebel,
Yes, I was a rebel.
religious, not religious, but
No,
it
just really
you
close
do,
to God, really close with God
yeah,
and Jesus. I was very into Jesus, but not religious at all. I even had
yeah,
visitation from Jesus as a child.
yeah,
One of those ones you hear people say where like I was walking out of school and he was talking to me, and then I was in the school, and the next thing you know, I was in the parking lot getting honked at, like because I didn't, like time lapsed or something.
So I have a question, and this is just coming from a person who I also grew up in a religious family and went to Catholic school. However, I don't have any connection to Jesus. And I'm just wondering, do you feel like your connection what to Jesus was because of your religious background? Like without that, like why do people connect so much to Jesus? Why don't they like to me, I guess
Jesus,
same thing as love.
go ahead.
Like to me, I people are calling Jesus what I would call maybe love or self-love. I don't know, or something that
Well, Jesus represents Christ consciousness,
yeah,
and Christ consciousness holds self-love,
yeah,
holds the identity of that, the truth of who we are,
yeah,
that we are, a piece of God. If I always tell people,
yeah,
God is like the sun, we are the rays, we are the sparks,
yeah.
and that um that we're a piece of God, and really what Jesus was doing. So I believed in Jesus in a very different way, even back.
Okay.
I
Because
believed in reincarnation, to,
yeah,
and I don't know how I learned about it even. Uh, I wasn't exposed to other religions except for I knew a little bit about Judaism
yeah,
because Catholicism came from Judaism,
yeah,
so I knew a little bit about that. But so he represents the Christ consciousness. He was bringing us the new way of being. He was teaching us how to be, and that's what I do. I'm teaching people a new way of being.
yeah,
I'm learning that new way of being myself.
yeah.
You
Okay.
know, and so I don't claim to be a master, and
Right.
always, I hope to master, my higher self and my physical. I'm on the ascension path, but
Right.
like everyone else, but like he he really embodied and mastered the Christ consciousness,
Right.
and
So,
that's
but
why he's so famous. Plus he was a rebel against the
yeah,
Jews, the Jewish
yeah,
way of being, and he was like, and he would get mad and he'd be like, this isn't the way things are supposed to be, and just like, you know
yeah. But
he
he was also wasn't the only one. So
no.
I get so like I just feel like he gets a lot of the attention. And that's the rebel in me that's like, let's not call it Jesus anymore, or even Christ. Let's just call it consciousness or love or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? But
Yes,
fair enough.
yes, yes.
But they're all interchangeable,
I
right? The
think that I
term.
had such a connection to him because he is a guide for me,
Yeah. Okay.
as is Mary Magdalene.
Hmm.
But she didn't come in the picture till like way later in my life, really, that I
Hmm.
was aware of. Saint Teresa was one of my guides, but
Yeah.
uh, but also I had Egyptian and other guides, and a lot of animal
Yeah.
spirit guides. But um, probably because I was most familiar with Jesus, yes.
Yeah.
But I rejected a lot, and I didn't reject him because
Okay.
to me he's like a brother, like he's
Okay.
like a brother, an uncle, like he's a special person to me personally.
Good.
Um, and I, I think I've had other spirit guides. I think young yeah, the Jungian, like that's why I think I do so much with the inner child and all that, and because I channeled it, I didn't know what that.
Carl Jung or Jung or
Yes,
whatever. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I think he must be a guide just from you know, and I like Buddha, and I find Buddha fascinating, and I feel like of all the religions, I kind of like that one the most
Yeah.
from what
Yeah,
I know.
there's like so much stuff taken from Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism that I think from what I've been doing in my research and learning that Jesus like learned from them
Yes, he
and
did.
brought it over and then but people are thinking that I think people are also confused and think he's not human, but he was human,
Oh
right?
yeah,
We all have that ability to do what he did and be
exactly. And
what he is.
he was trying to say that to us too,
Yeah,
and people misconstrued it.
yeah,
Yeah, he's highly misunderstood. Yes.
yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay, we're on the same page there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't like believe the way that Christians believed
Yeah.
back then. And in fact, when I was probably like 19 years old and I saw Life of Brian, I was like, oh my God, that's what it was like. He was like, I don't know if you've seen that, but he's like,
No.
it's hilarious. You gotta watch it because I feel like it's just like how Jesus was. He was like, no, go away, don't bother me, no. They were like worshiping him and following him.
Yeah, he's like, you guys,
And
like,
he was a teacher, a rabbi, yes, but he also was like didn't want people to give their power to him. Just like Spirit said to me, don't allow people to put you on a pedestal because you will fall,
yeah.
and don't allow people to give you their power. And I used to struggle with that. People wanted to give me their power, they wanted to project their mother issues onto me, all sorts of stuff, and I had to learn the boundaries and how to handle myself so that that didn't happen. And and Spirit said, you know, you are to guide them into their power, help them step into their power, not give their power to you.
Yeah, that's hard to do. That's hard to, yeah, totally. I think that that almost could be like a learned thing over time because it's so easy to just like when you have power, it's so easy to just sort of feed off that and how to not and like humble yourself constantly. And it's hard. It's not easy. And I think people who do rise and are sort of like famous do somehow feed off that power. Because that's why they've risen. It takes two to tango. It takes one side has to be able to and wants and accepts the power and that position, and then the other, and then the people want to give away their power.
You really have, it's a juggling act and you really have
Yeah,
to figure it out. And I've had some huge lessons with it.
yeah.
You know that.
Um, back to, so when did you sort of like accept, hey, I am gonna start doing, where did you learn this stuff? Like energy healing, and when did you start to like accept, hey, I'm gonna start doing this for people? Or
So when I was like 20, I met this therapist because I had anxiety because I'm highly sensitive and I had some anxiety. And so I started going to therapy, and he happened to be holistic, and he introduced me to Louise Hayes and some
mm,
other people. And um, and to a lot of things. He sent me to my first Chinese medicine doctor, things like that. He was great. Well, in his office, I met my Reiki master,
mm,
and I started to study Reiki. Well, in my class, we didn't learn like how I had you guys practice right away. We didn't have a practice. We learned some stuff. It was very vague and secretive. And then we went to a Reiki share. And my first Reiki share, I was working on this woman and I heard shoulder, shoulder, shoulder. And I'm like, but that's not one of the seven chakras. And I forgot that you could work anywhere on the body. So I did all seven chakras. Then I worked on this lady's shoulder. And then she told me, oh my God, I had the guts to tell her what I was hearing. And she said, I have the worst shoulders in the world. She's like, they become dislocated all the time. I have rotator cuff issues. Oh my God, they feel so great. Thank you. And I was like, oh my God, there's a rhyme and reason to this because I was terrified of my intuition. And I
mm,
think what part of my anxiety was that I was ungrounded
mm,
and very open up here.
mm-hmm.
So Reiki grounded it for me. It grounded my intuition. It gave it a purpose. So for the longest time, I wouldn't read anybody unless I was doing energy healing on them. I got
Mm-hmm.
into it. I was like, wow, this is, it's just like the love of my life after that. But I knew before I found it, I had an inclination. There was something that you could do with your hands to help heal people. But I just didn't know anything about it or whatever. And then I talked to her one day when I was waiting for him, and I was like, sign me up.
Oh
What
wow.
I've been looking for. And then once I started doing the Reiki, um, my intuition opened up even more. It became more grounded. And I literally was guided everything. My next step was that I went to Irene's for massage school, my myomassology, and studied. And she was very energy based too. But I was just a natural with it. And as I worked on people doing massages, intuitive things started coming to me, and I'd be shown how to fix different injuries. And people would come with me with the same injury, same injury. And then when I got that down, spirit would send me a slew of people with the other same injury. And I would learn how to physically fix that injury. But I'd also like combine it with some energy to like make it not so hard on my body. And
Mm-hmm.
and I got shown how to do all of that. And then I started getting messages of like, what was their belief behind their injury or their illness? And then I started channeling that, and they'd say that they felt that way or whatever. And the readings started happening more, and I started incorporating more energy into their sessions. And then some people just started coming to me for just energy. And then people would ask me just for a reading, and I'd be like, I'm just making this shit up. I don't know. Like they'd be so into it, and they'd be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It took me for a while to like really realize what I was doing and know the difference between things. I didn't have any training with my intuition. I developed it all on my own. And all the most training I had was Reiki. And then, then they started teaching me about the inner child and this and that. And then I pick up things here and there from certain people, teaching me little things here and there, both for the physical body and for um, physical health and for energy techniques and stuff. And so, um, uh, and people were talking about the inner child back then, a couple of people, and I was like, what? I had no idea what that meant or what that was.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought I made up the term intuitive healing because I was so back then we didn't have the internet.
Wow.
We're not connected. I did not read books because I was dyslexic, so I barely read any books. I did read Louise Hay's book because it was very easy. Now my brain has healed a lot and I can read and comprehend now. But it was hard for me back then, and I also never like I was lazy because things came to me intuitively. I was lazy. Like, why do I want to read? Like,
Yeah.
and I would like if I did read, somebody would I'd tell something about something, and they'd be like, "Oh, you should read this book." And that's what happened with the inner child thing is I developed this way of working with the inner child. And then I said to my old skating coach, she was a psychologist, a doctor's of psychology. Um, and I told her what I was doing and explained it to her one day when we were talking on the phone. And she said, "You got to read this book. You got to check out this book by John Bradshaw." So I started to peek at it. I read a little in the front, I read a little in the back, and I got confirmation. I was like, "Oh wow, okay, I'm doing the right thing." Okay, because I'm seriously lazy about reading. And so I was like, "Oh wow, I now have read the book," but it took me all these years to like read that book. And I'm like, "Oh wow, I really am doing like almost everything he says to do in this book. I'm doing. It's a crazy."
I find it hard, like, as you develop, I feel like your own intuition, I find it almost harder to read. Like, I used to love books and I used to soak in information, and now, from all my work with you and then after, and really like tuning into myself, it's hard for me to read now because it's like I don't want to know. I don't want to take on someone else's interpretation or like beliefs or like I just want to like almost be in my own bubble somewhat.
Yes, I know what you mean because like when people used to come to me for healings and they'd want to tell me stuff, I'd be like, "No, no, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. I don't want to be influenced. I want to
Mhm.
just be able to clearly hear. And
Mhm.
if something doesn't come through, then you can tell me and ask me. But let's see what comes through first." Yeah, because
Yeah,
you don't want to be influenced. Yeah.
right. Um Yeah, that's incredible. So you're pretty much so your intuition is amazing. You've had so many years of just strengthening it and listening to it and following it because that's the hardest part is like trusting it and yeah, not doubting it and ugh, it's
Well,
so
I
great.
learned through doing. And that's how I learn. I'm a kinesthetic learner no matter what
Yeah.
it is. So
Yeah.
I did just worked on, 20, 30 people a week. And I learned doing it through doing it through all the years. And it developed and added more and developed and added more. And then Spirit would say, okay, you see these connections? Okay, now make a class for that. Do you see these connections? It was like I was being taught the whole time.
Yeah.
And I still am adding things and being taught things.
So
Right.
you'll hear something or you'll see something like a vision. And so how
I'll
do you
feel it. I do all of it.
do all of it?
And I interpret it into, and that's when I'm teaching people intuition. I say, you got your own language with the universe. Don't ask me what the answer is or what this means. You got to ask spirit what that means. You got to ask your higher self what that means. You got to go in
Yeah.
and figure out what your, and because everybody has their own language with the universe and it's unique and you got to develop it. And I'll help you and I'll give you the exercises to practice and the meditations to do that help and the
That's so hard that's a hard part because like I feel like the visions and all that is probably really normalized and happens probably to almost everyone and people aren't even realizing it because it's also thoughts, right?
yes,
Um,
and when they're speaking to you, it's thoughts, and you have
yeah.
to decipher between your thoughts
Yes.
and the universe's thoughts that are being
Yeah.
downloaded into you. You have
It's so confusing. And I think we're like normalized. Oh, these are just thoughts. They're just weird, random, whatever. But like starting to interpret and trying to learn that language like you said is sort of like the hard part and when you start to become the psychic I guess is when you're starting to become like aware that oh those are psychic messages like I didn't even know that until recently and even like the feelings that you get those are psychic messages well I just thought that was being an empath
yeah.
and just like I didn't know that
It's
that was
called clairsentience.
yeah
There's the clair for everything, you know,
yeah. And
and
interpreting is so hard because you're like, that was just like a random vision. Like, what is that? Well, I have no idea. Where do you even start?
yeah, and sometimes they'd be scary. Like when I was
Yeah.
19, I dreamt or I had a daydream on the way to work of my boss having a heart attack that night. She had a heart attack. But that's
Wow.
why I would get frustrated is I'd be like, what do you want me to do with this? I don't know what to do with this. How is this helping? This is just haunting me and annoying me and giving
Yeah.
me anxiety. And like, but now I know I could warn or so not too long ago, um, I had a friend living with me and he wasn't taking his medicine and he was telling me he wasn't feeling good. And I said, dude, you got to go to the hospital right now. Like he was telling me, and then I paused and I was doing something, and then I was like, I felt called to like text him and say, go to the hospital right now. And then I drove him to the hospital, and he had blood clots in his lungs.
Wow.
So then I could listen to it. Now I can listen to it a lot more, and
You get messages from like random people on the street or stuff like that, or is it mostly people you know?
well, I'm a lot more closed off now. That's what gives you the anxiety is when you're too open and all that shit's flooding in and confusing your system. And
Yeah.
every time you upgrade, like I feel like that's partially what's going on with me right now. Every time you upgrade a bit, you get a little bit of anxiety because your frequency is, shifting. And so, um, yeah. So the the what was I talking about?
I had a feeling that you were gonna say that. So
So
you just slow, yeah, we're talking about you
oh,
now.
okay. So so yeah, it did used to happen to me. And then now it only once in a while happens to me. So like the last big time, and this is even years ago, because I closed myself. I'm very closed off compared to how I used to be.
Yeah.
And I'm very closed off to people too, as much as I used to be. And I'm not so like wanting to help because I'm not codependent anymore. So I'm not like trying to
Yes.
like fix and save every single person. So
Yeah.
that helps close you down. But
Yeah.
I remember when I was studying Kundalini yoga in Chicago years ago. This is the last time I remember it big time happening. Um, I was looking at my friend's friend, and then all of a sudden she's being abused. She has thyroid issues, like all this shit came through about her. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll tell my friend. And I said, and she said, yeah, you're right about all of it, but will she do anything about it? And I was like, yeah. I said, well, you can tell her, what I do for a living and offer it to her if she wants. And if not, then fine, whatever. But it came through.
Wow. Yeah, I find that too. The more that you
Boundaries.
yeah, the more that you also feel like more healed yourself, the less you feel like you want to heal others too. And it becomes like more work than like, I don't know. It's
I think it shifts, and maybe you're just a little bit um haven't shifted as far yet.
yeah.
I think that it was um like a weight that I put on me
Mm,
because we both had the belief I'm responsible
mm,
and fix and save, and they're related. And
yeah.
so, and then you come in with this soul mission too, right?
Yeah.
And but you have free will and choice if you're going to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, it's not like God's pressuring you. It's like we pressured ourselves from like our childhood,
Yeah.
you know, quirks or survival techniques, so to speak, our defense mechanisms and things like that, and like how our personality formed. It formed in a way that was um, served us at the time, but
Mhm.
then, it was like kind of how we survived what we went through, but it doesn't serve
Right.
greater good later on. It
Right.
becomes an infliction and a burden in a way. And so I think once you get past the yeah, like I almost quit because I was like, I don't need to save the world anymore.
Same.
I'm gonna
Like
go
it,
work at a tire shop, you know?
yeah, same. That's how I feel. And I'm like, I don't even want to do this work. And then I felt like Paul to do so when I was done with the training, that's how I felt. I was like, I'm good. I just want to focus on me. That's the only reason why I did it. I never like intended to work with people. I didn't really like it. And then I was like, okay,
You didn't have your empathicness yet under control. Yeah.
no. And I also
Yeah.
didn't really feel like I was I was like, okay, maybe I am like kind of good at this. Like I started to like accept that part like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
of it. Like I'm kind of natural at it and the inner child stuff is my jam too. I do a lot of inner child stuff.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
You need to call yourself an ascension healer.
I know that was for me was hard. It still is. So for me, I grew up and it wasn't really accepted. Like my family kind of like threw out my books. I had energy healing
Oh,
from
yeah.
like sixth grade, seventh grade, like angel oracle cards and stuff like that. And my parents would throw them out. So like for me, I had a hard time. And then everyone around me, I surrounded myself with people who would kind of like and most of society kind of looks down on psychics. I don't
Not
know.
not anymore, but
Not anymore, but I think that's why, because not anymore. Like now it's more accepted.
yes.
That's my work that I have to do is not caring what other people think, like that
Yeah.
was part of my
Accepting who you are. Yeah. And
yeah, that
I
was
remember
my
that too because I didn't want my mom to know because she was so Catholic. I,
yeah,
I, and then one day I just started telling her about how I was giving someone a massage and how, the parents that were dead came in and started talking to me and how hilarious they were. Once
oh
I
wow,
accepted myself and accepted it and didn't care, she
yeah,
accepted it and she was laughing at my story. And,
yeah,
because when we accept it, then people will attract people who accept us.
Well, that too,
And
and also like they kind of are like, okay, well, I'm not like even my dad when I was up north, I don't even care what my parents think anymore or my whoever anyone else really cares. And he was like asking me questions about like mediums and stuff. And I was like, where is this coming from? Like it's just wild that people are kind of like more accepting of it.
yeah, it for sure is. I mean, it's crazy. I do think that people need to be more careful when they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're not trained properly and they're just doing it, and that creates a whole nother problem.
Well, that leads to one of my questions. Have you had some like negative experiences working with energy or like so I guess it would be like the astral what's the term for like the astral
No,
realm? You
no,
haven't.
no, no. I think because of my faith in God and how close I have always been with God,
Yeah.
the first time, I mean, I've done exorcisms
Wow.
and on accident. And at first I didn't really even believe them. But the first time that happened, I instinctively knew what to do. So I really haven't, except for there is one story I'll tell you. But so um, I was working on this guy and he had been messing around with voodoo, and his girlfriend's like, I think you need to straighten him out. I was giving him a massage. You need to do some of that energy stuff because he's messing around with voodoo. I don't think he should be. And I was like, okay. So I just laid hands on, and I didn't know anything. I wasn't trained for anything but Reiki. And I don't even think I was a master yet. And I'm working on him. And sure enough, I see this gray thing come at me. And I just said, God is with me. God is with me. God is with me. And I just kept saying that, and whoosh, it went out the room and
Wow.
not into me, but it was aimed at me, like gonna come in me. Another time, this was the biggie. I've also seen, and this is why I don't really like plant medicine and things like that. Like
Yeah.
I know it can be helpful for some people, but I think it's just
Hmm.
such a risk for someone's mental health and stuff like that. So this lady came to me. She had been down south to in South America doing ayahuasca, and I had known her previously to going to do it and worked with her. Then she came back and she had voices in her head. It was like she was schizophrenic. They were like messing with her, telling her to do these different crazy things with candles and do all this stuff. And I'm like, and she literally started arcing on the table when I'm
Wow.
working on her. And every time I would get rid of it, but if she went to go, she was an alcoholic and she'd drink and she'd come back and have these attachments in her again. And so I had to just keep working really hard, and it was hard because she didn't quit drinking. And so I've worked with a lot of addicts and a lot of their attachments and things like that, and I learned that way. But one girl was like over the moon, like, oh my God. She came in, she said, like, I just haven't felt myself lately. And she comes in, I put her on the table, I just start running energy. And um previously, her coming, sometimes spirit speaks to me and said, she's got an attachment, like let's try like thousands of attachments. Like I'm working on her, just see all this shit flying out of her like crazy, and she's screaming in pain, she's crying, she's arcing, she's trembling, she's moving, rocking all over the place, but not in control of her body. She's not doing it to herself. So then
Wow.
I have to call in assistance because I'm thinking she's going to fall off this table.
Wow.
She comes in, or my husband at the time, who I trained in Reiki, came in, held her on the table, and helped run. I said, will you just help run light? And so we're just running light and all this stuff. And then at the end, she's like, what happened? And I was like, all of a sudden, intuitively, I said, have you been smoking pot and meditating in a warehouse in Detroit? And she's like, oh, yeah, sure. That's where I work. I'm teaching yoga and doing massage and doing energy healing, but I'm not trained. And I'm thinking, you're not trained? Like, not none of this stuff? And the
Wow.
place that she was in was a vortex. And here she is opening up, because when you smoke pot or do anything, you're opening up
Yeah.
more. And when you open up to meditate, you're opening up even more. And you got to be really careful where you do that. And I don't suggest smoking pot and meditating because it's dangerous. It
Yeah.
can, I know people love to do it, but it can be very dangerous. I've learned this from watching people do it and get attachments and all this crazy shit. You know, after that, look, girl, she even said my husband's name in the creepiest way. And I didn't say his name. I swear to God, I did not say his name. And even if I did say his name, he has such a weird name that
Wow.
nobody would remember it. You know what I mean? And then later we were talking and he was like, "Did you hear her say my name?" I was like, "Yes." That was so weird. That was so creepy because it was like Regan. It was like really weird. And after
Oh,
that, I was like, "Please, God, do not send me this anymore. This is not what I want to deal with." Okay.
yeah.
Other than that, in helping other people who had weird stuff happen, I haven't really had anything happening, but I've had students who have been pulled out of their beds, scratches on their bodies,
I hate that shit.
scratches on the walls, weird stuff, like telling me, like, they had to stop it with all their might, that they were being pulled out of bed, or you push.
That's like my worst fear. Every night before I go to bed, I have a vision of being pulled out of bed. And I'm like, and then I just surround myself in a bubble of white light. And I'm like, I want to have a good dream. I don't want to be disturbed. I want to have a good sleep. And then I've never had an experience, knock on wood. But I don't know why, if that's just from like TV. But yeah, getting pulled out of
I
bed,
heard one of my students tell that story, like tell one of the
maybe.
stories when you're in class. Probably one of your classmates was one of the people that told me that.
Maybe, probably. Oh man. So what is like do you have like like a thing that you do to like keep your energy clean and like detach from when you work with people?
Oh yeah, I do what's called the energy hookup. You can get it free on my website, which
Okay.
is the easiest one is ascendmylife.com. And
Okay.
you go on there and you look for the free meditation. Um, and it's called the energy hookup. I also have a lot on my YouTube of me doing meditations, guided
Okay.
meditations. I also have like a subscription to all my meditations where basically are like healings for $3.99 that you can get. And I keep adding to them. Like recently somebody said, "Will you make us one that helps deal with anger?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good one." I don't think I have that one. I have to check because I forget what's ones I made. But because I've made so many. But the energy hookup, ground,
Yeah.
connect, protect, which because it's like my theme. I used to call it the tree meditation.
Hmm.
But I think back then we mostly just grounded, and then I added through the years
Okay.
ground, connect, protect, and that was taught to me by Mother Earth. She taught me that. Gaia. So
Yeah, I still
which
do
is
that.
which now I hear tons of different versions of it out there. People do it all the time. And back then, there was early 2000s when I downloaded that and put that into my managing your energy class when I first developed that. And
Yeah.
um so that, and then I created a clearing version of that. um
Ooh, I'll have to check that out. Clearing version?
yeah, and it clearing cords and attachments, so it's clearing out your chakras and your aura.
Okay.
It might be called clearing out cords and the aura. Like, I can't remember what I named them.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to do for energy healers. I think you have to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
I've created a new regime that I've worked on with my new managing your energy class, where I want them doing something in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. These different regimes to keep,
mm,
it's a new way of being, and especially with how crazy the world is right now. And if you're sensitive, you need to like really take care of yourself, and this is your self-care. But I of course get into other ways of self-care than just with energy. Like, you have to take care of every part of your being, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah. So that's a good transition. Where are you seeing things right now? Like I guess like what's the collective energy or any themes that you're seeing in the collective and also like the just the world?
I feel like for the past 5 years, people's shadows and darkness and trauma has been dredged up to be dealt with, because we can't hold more light if all that's stuck inside of us. So it's being pushed out of us by these solar flares and by the positioning of the planets, what the planets are doing, by the astrology, because we are in very unique times, and we are, you know, we have more than one. We're switching over ages on many different levels, more than just like one, more than just the Aquarian age. There's cycles that are 40,000 years, 200,000 years. There's cycles that are 60 years and 100 years that are repeating right now, the past 4 years. So it's very auspicious time of change. So people, they're not well behaved, and we're seeing the extreme of duality,
Mm-hmm.
extreme of separation and duality. Because what is the Aquarian age? But it's about community, coming together. It's about oneness. Christ consciousness is oneness consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing,
Where did this thumbs up come from? That's so funny.
I don't know, you're going live?
Oh, I didn't press it. Did you press it?
No.
I saw your hands up. That's so weird.
Spirit is
Spirit
spirit
just
giving
gave
us
us
a
a
thumbs up.
thumbs up.
I guess, I guess I'm saying the right things.
Yeah.
Um, so it's the dying of the old ways within each of us and within our societies, like standards in our society, the way that we do things. And so things are falling apart, like I always said they would. But back then, they didn't hadn't started really falling apart yet, you know. Now they really are falling apart. People
Yeah.
are falling apart,
Mhm.
but it's okay. So we need these skills of like my managing your energy class, because like more and more, because I added a lot of Kundalini yoga. That's why Kundalini yoga is the yoga of the new age, because it gives you the tools to handle what we're going through right now. And
Hmm.
it is the new way of being,
Hmm.
living like that, with doing those things, and the Ayurvedic way of doing things, and like
Mhm.
all these, it's like, and psychology is catching up with the
Mhm.
ancient arts. Science is catching up with the ancient arts. It's beautiful to see. I saw this thing on Facebook the other day of this psychologist talking about how we shouldn't be drugging indigo children. He doesn't,
Mhm.
I don't think he knows that there's crystal children and rainbow children as well. So I'm an indigo, we're more warriors.
Mhm.
But as we ascend, we will come into that next dimensional phase. So like, we'll achieve what a crystal child is born in, that consciousness. An indigo is born with fourth dimensional consciousness, a crystal with fifth dimensional, a rainbow with multi-dimensional consciousness. And that's why you're seeing that shift. They're born that way. We're evolving that way.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm seeing. Um, I'm seeing also karmic cycles end, which is
Mhm.
basically our old ways of doing things. It's just another
Mhm.
way of saying it, the karmic cycles. And I'm seeing karma speed up so that it's more instant. I'm seeing manifestation speed up so it's more instant. So we have to be very diligent about what we believe and what we think. And I'm all about the beliefs. Everything comes down to belief, period.
Yeah.
Belief. We're constantly creating our reality, whether we are conscious of that or not.
Yeah. Totally.
And
What
we
if
are collectively, and it makes me so upset that like people who know what we know, they're focusing, and I've gotten sucked into it too. Let's not focus on the world falling apart. Let's focus on the seeds that are planted underneath the ashes
Yeah.
of the rebuilding. So we don't have to experience such tragedy and struggle and challenge. We can make it easier on ourselves with our beliefs. But at the same time, it's kind of hard because you're like shedding those beliefs,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's hard, because you're like, what beliefs do I put on? Because it's like a part of me is like, I don't want to believe anything. But then you're like, you're no longer human, right? Because then you're like just a tree. So it's like, what beliefs do I choose to put on? And because they always fall apart anyways.
I think that you should choose to put on the beliefs that are just generally true and that
Yeah.
empower you,
Yeah.
because we were brainwashed and taught lack consciousness, fear-based consciousness,
Right.
that we're not powerful. We
Yeah.
we were taught all of these things, then we have to undo that and create a new. So
Yeah.
there's basic beliefs that
Mm-hmm.
we all share and have to a certain extent that need to
Mm-hmm.
be changed, like worthy, good enough, lovable.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has that to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And so everybody is lovable and good enough and worthy, no matter what sin
Yeah.
sin they commit or what mistakes we make or whatever. We're all a little piece of God, so we're all worthy.
So you talked about being in like this transition phase. So you think we're like, or what did you say? It was like in the in between or something like that.
Yeah, in the in between. We're in the in between. So we're in between our old self and our new self, and we don't know how to act.
Yeah, it is. It does feel that way. It feels like also like kind of like unknown. Like even like I listen to like a lot of podcasts and stuff, and like even the psychics are saying like I can't even predict because it's so unknown. I guess like they talk a lot about timelines changing and shifting and constantly, and it's like nobody really kind of knows exactly what's gonna happen. But
Yeah, it is a little bit harder to predict than it used to be, but it is
yeah,
possible because I think it's because we're at a choice point.
yeah,
We have a choice. We can choose the old or the new.
yeah,
And it's like this is hell and this is not.
yeah,
This is heaven on earth. We can have things be easy. We can have life be easy. Like, I mean, thinking a lot of people think that life is hard. And I feel like as we've gone through these past few years, we have really experienced those beliefs way more than we did before.
So do you think it's letting go of like the darkness a little? Like, or I don't know, because a part of me is like, we will never let go of the dark.
No, it has a purpose, and the darkness is in service to the light. I think
Yeah.
it's a changing in perspective, is what it is.
Yes.
That's why the beliefs are important because they
Okay.
change. Our perspective is based on our belief.
Yeah.
So it's a changing of perspective, is all it is. And then when you change your perspective, your reality just completely shifts.
So
And
it's almost like acknowledging the dark, but also like choosing the light or like choosing to see the lighter perspective or the,
yeah, I yeah, um, I definitely think that, so like how I explained it in a very simple way, but it's a lot more complicated than this,
yeah,
is
yeah,
that the darkness says, hey, we you need to do this. So we're going to bring you these challenges so that you evolve to this. Whereas the light is like, you can just ascend and it can be very easy. Miracle. Here you go. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like that. And you can choose it to be easy or to be hard. And that
yeah,
that's it, very, very, very dumbed down and simplified. Um but it's living in alignment. I think the biggest thing that you have to do is like really self-realization. You have to realize that you are divine and that you're powerful, and you got to keep telling yourself that, and you got to keep negating the lies that you have in your head because you have to reprogram it. And we operate 95% from our subconscious, right? And so that's why the way that I do the healings, when we work with the aspects, that's your subconscious, right? And we try to get them into an altered state using the Reiki and a little breath work to get them so we can subconsciously reprogram them.
Yeah.
And so that is really important because our conscious mind and our subconscious mind are constantly in a battle. And if we're operating not, I think that as we're evolving though, we are operating more consciously and less
Okay.
five. I don't feel like it's 95% anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
That
think
feels that feels more, I feel like that. I agree with that. Like it's like the evolving and like where we're heading is the more is higher consciousness, really, right? And
yes.
it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm a light, I'm getting rid of darkness and I'm ascending. I don't know, but it's like I'm more aware of what my thoughts are. I'm more aware of what other people as energy is coming into me and I'm having more power by choosing to like release it or not believe it or not, choosing my beliefs, all that stuff. Also,
This choice is power.
yeah, yeah. And it's more in I think maybe an elite level had that or already know this stuff. And now it's like the general public's like, "Oh, I can be that too." And um it they and we can say, "Oh, you got like it just as basic as war." Like, why are we been doing it this whole time? Thousands of years. And as consciousness grows, it's like maybe we can do a different way. Maybe we don't have to be at war. Maybe we don't even have to be number one. Like, why do we have to be the number one country? Like, all those things are like, to me, old energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Falling, is that stuff like falling away? Like, I guess I guess where do you see the world? Like what is that where you see the world heading? Is like more consciousness in
Yeah. Have you ever read the book? This is one of the books that I own that I read besides Louise Hay's book and Flowers in the Attic with that book years ago. It's very few books that I read all the way through. And do you know one that I actually really loved
huh.
that I feel like is where we're going is Celestine Prophecy.
Okay, what I'll write that down. What is it? Celestine.
Celestine Prophecy. I read it when I was it was the first book I think besides Flower in the Attic that I read all the way through.
I
Uh,
feel like we
it,
had to read Flowers in the Attic at school, maybe, which is really fucked up, right?
yeah, really. I know, right? Yeah. Um, but it is. And so it being responsible with their energy, like being very responsible with our energy. I think where we're headed is we know who we are and we don't we don't need to steal energy from each other. We're constantly stealing energy because we need validation outside of ourselves. We're gonna be okay here, and
Yeah.
we won't need to steal people's energy or use someone else for something and
Yeah.
be there's not a person in the world that's not experienced like stealing someone's energy or manipulating to get what they want, like, or what they need, whether it's conscious or unconscious, it because everybody does it. And, it's just bullies are more blatant
Yeah.
because there's a fine line between a narcissist and an empath. An empath is wanting to save someone so that someone will save them
Mhm.
instead of just saving themselves. So
Right.
the empath needs the healing just as much as
Right.
the narcissist. The
Right.
narcissist is just more blatant, usually,
Yeah.
about getting what they want and need.
Yeah.
And it's all because, so I think, childhood development is really important. Yes, we're fixing all of our inner child work, but we have to start with the children and start raising them empowered with these
Mhm.
empowered beliefs and stuff. And I know that some people have. I know my
Mhm.
friend Natalie raises her daughter to look in the mirror and say, I love you
Mhm.
to herself and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? And to be proud of ourselves instead of like down on ourselves. It's self-development is really huge now. And what I see in the spiritual world is people try to bypass the self-development and human development and just use spiritual experiences and say
Hmm.
they're spiritual, but they don't mature. We need to emotionally mature and mentally mature as well as spiritually mature. You're not
Yeah.
going to be you're going to be a very dangerous person if you learn what I teach you if you're not mature.
Yeah.
And so that's why in my courses I require the healings because
Yeah.
spirit is like, and
It's
I thought I could offer my classes without the healings and make a shit ton more money. You know what I mean? I'd
yeah.
get a lot more signups, but I don't because uh I have to be in integrity with what spirit told me to do. And you have to be a healed healer. You have to be a healed person.
Yeah.
Especially if you're studying to be a healer under me, I want to make sure that you mature on every level.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
yeah, that's I agree that that makes sense. You can't just like go take a ayahuasca and like, like that girl, like start teaching teachings or helping other people take ayahuasca. Like that's all dangerous. And I think
yeah.
it's also like promoted and it's kind of lessening. Like marijuana for some reason was being hugely promoted online. And I think it's lessening a little bit because why are spiritual people promoting hallucinogens so much? I don't understand. It should be a sacred thing and not everybody needs it. You trust me, you don't necessarily want to step into this world. It's like it's not an easy world to be a spiritual person.
Oh
It's
yeah.
easy to be a healer and a spiritual person or a psychic in this world. It's not an easy job, basically.
Yeah. It's
It's not for everybody.
no, it's not. And there's a lot of posers out there for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
I
it's
mean, it comes with
danger. It's
mental,
very dangerous. It's very
it's
dangerous.
dangerous. There, like you said, it comes with your own mental health. Uh, it could affect your mental health greatly, and you have to learn. Then you have to go down that path. How do
It's a
I
crap.
manage?
Yeah.
You have to. You're either forced to deal with your mental health then, or you don't, and it could be dangerous. So
Yeah, even ketamine. I had a friend of mine who's a psychologist did some ketamine, right?
yeah,
She went into psychosis.
yeah,
It,
scary.
and you and I know about mental health because
Yeah,
we know people, and so we know, and I just, you can create these experiences that you have on these drugs through meditation,
yeah,
through I mean, my life's been a trip, boy, sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like do all that. You can breath work, you can
yeah,
meditate. There's all sorts of great natural ways to do it. And I also have had like a lot of people say to me, like, um, you know, that they want to get psychic as me really fast.
yeah. You don't
And,
want that.
and you know what it's like. So no, you don't. You gotta, your psyche
No.
has to get used to it.
Yeah,
Your
and you have
nervous
to.
your nervous system's gotta adjust. People
It's
don't
that.
realize
Yeah, you don't want those messages all the time like that. Like you want to be able to gradually build that and because I mean, how many stories have you heard,
it.
when they're
Nurse
told,
yourself into it. Yeah.
yeah. So that also is a good thing question. This is where we can start. I know you have somewhere to be, right?
Yeah, they're calling me. I'm late.
Oh, okay.
Rebels.
Do you
Um,
do you
we
need to
can
wrap?
finish this. We can finish it. Like, I might have some time tomorrow to finish it.
Um, well, I mean, we can wrap it up. I just had one more question. How do you kind of view mental illness and on a spiritual, um,
Mental illness is ungroundedness
yeah,
with too open aura and too open of chakras, and the variants will be like, the ear chakras, the third eye, the crown, the channeling chakras too open. You're too open up here and
Hmm.
not grounded down there. You're most likely, but in some kind of variance, and their energy is they're ungrounded from their body. Their
Hmm.
and their aura is got holes in it, or it's too open, or you know,
Yeah.
and so the difference between a mentally ill person and a healer is that we know that we're delving into different realities, whereas people who are mentally ill don't know that. It's a fine,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of healers walk the line of mental illness. They really have to learn to be grounded, and some of them never really do learn to be grounded, you know,
Yeah.
and
It's
and they're very powerful psychics, but they're cuckoo.
yeah. Yeah. So when someone has something, a mental illness diagnosis, have you worked with
Yes, and you have to work with
any?
them. It's contraindicated to work with somebody who who is very extremely mentally ill. You're not supposed
Mhm.
to do energy work on them. There's a very specific way that I will work with them,
Okay.
and they absolutely have to be on medicine. Um,
You do or they do?
they do.
Okay.
They need to be on medicine. I don't. The medicine has a purpose. I think some people can get off of it and some people can't, and it's just it does have I'm the least person to endorse medicine, but when it comes to mental illness, yes,
Okay.
if you can't control the moods and the swinging from dimension to dimension, like you're irrational, yes, you need medicine. I do believe in it. Is there other ways? Sure, sure, but it's a hard frickin' road.
Yeah.
So I always require people to be on medicine. um you want to communicate with their doctor, their therapist. I've worked with, I have done some incredible work with people, and their their psychiatrists and psychologists were like, yes, keep doing it, you're helping. But it is a very tricky thing, and it's contraindicated.
Okay.
And I would say that anybody who has ADD, ADHD, or any kind of mental illness, they need grounding, is the
Yeah.
most important thing for them.
Good. And you can find grounding meditation on your website. Uh,
Yes. Hmm.
what's your website again? We'll wrap it up here.
Ascendmylife.com.
Okay.
Ascendmylife.com. Or you can go to Ascension School of Healing Arts.com.
Okay.
So I have a website that holds all my classes, and that's
Uh-huh.
ascendmylife.com. And then I have my landing page, which is Ascension School of Healing Arts. But they connect. So, but yeah, it's Ascension School of Healing Arts.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure talking. I love talking about
Yes.
this stuff. So we'll
Yes.
have to do it again, then, a little bit and
Yes. I'd love to.
think of other things to talk about, I'm sure. And
A plethora of things. Yes.
yeah, we'll connect soon about some events.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.